snap. He's going deep. He's got it over the touchdown. He's in. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming and get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one. As I'm joined by my partner on Fin Too Deep, Neal Driscoll. As always, I hope everyone is having a fantastic week as we get into the second half of the week. As ironically enough, we also get into the second half of the season this weekend. Neal, bye week's over. Listen, I want to open up opening thoughts. This is where I want to go here. I'm seeing it a lot around. People are trying to fear monger. They're at it again. You know, the people who have got agendas and narratives and been wrong so much. They're at it again. And now the new one is, oh, should the Dolphins not be sleeping on the Las Vegas Raiders? Should they not be taking them lightly? You know, people in this community are trying to make them out like a bigger threat than they really are because they've won the last two games. Neal, if I remember correctly, the last two games have been against the Jets and the Giants. So let's continue on from there. But Aiden O'Connell, please. And this is coming from a guy who pulled a low-numbered dual patch of Aiden O'Connell with Clayton Tune. So I got all the reason in the world to be rooting for these guys to be successful because that equals guap in my pockets. But guess what? I know this defense is going to eat Aiden O'Connell alive. The only person I'm afraid of on that side is Josh Jacobs, really. I mean, go look at what Devontae Adams is paying for anytime touchdowns or 2 touchdowns on your parlays. He's playing over plus 2,000 on 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams. That shows you how much faith Vegas even has on Devontae Adams getting in the end zone with Aiden O'Connell. So how are you feeling heading into this week with the Raiders? I mean, I think we remember the last time we played them, we didn't even have Tua Tagovailoa starting for that game, remember? And lost that game barely, I believe it was, if I remember correctly. Did we win that game or lost?
Yeah, we lost. That was when Brissett threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage in the end zone to Waddle.
And Fuller was actually one of the few games he was active for when I said he was planning to retire, and people tried to crucify me and ended up being right. So how you feeling heading into this Raiders game? Because, brother, enjoy those cigars you've been smoking the last 2 weeks because we're going to have you smoking on that L pack and a big fat one. I don't think this is going to be close. In the Rock, the worst thing that could happen is a team that doesn't have that much talent on it like them, let's be honest. Besides, what are they doing on defense besides Crosby and Spillane right now? What are they doing on offense? You know what? So anyways, my whole point is, Neal, it don't matter who it is, and it's going to be even worse if it's a less talented team. Coming into the Rock right now, off the bye, any team could get worked in the NFL, and I think it's going to be even worse because it's the Raiders. They're going to get a rude awakening, I think.
Yeah, typically I say the bye week is almost as painful as a loss, but this bye week treated the Dolphins really good with all the teams that we needed to lose. I'm with you, man. I like this Raiders game for me. Like, remember, the last time we saw this Miami Dolphins team, they lost a heartbreaker to the Chiefs, a game that they should have won. They kicked themselves in the ass. The Miami Dolphins are the reason they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, not the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's what I said, Neal, on the show yesterday. I said the Chiefs didn't beat us; we beat ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what I think happened. And I think you're going to come off with a very motivated Dolphins team. We get the official word now that Devon A-Chain's coming back. I think that's a huge boost to this offense. And I'm with you. I'd be shocked if this game's within 20 points personally. I think the Dolphins offense is going to have their way with the Raiders defense, and I don't see a way the Raiders can put up 20 points on this defense. Not to take credit away from Davante Adams. He's a great receiver, but you can't be a great receiver if the quarterback getting you the ball can't get you the football. And I think we've seen frustration, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell. Davante Adams is just a really expensive decoy in the Raiders offense right now. I'm with you. I like Josh Jacobs a lot, but I do think that the Dolphins will be able to contain him. He might get a good run here and there, but for the Raiders, they better learn how to pass the ball, because I feel like they're going to get down quick. The Dolphins at home, they might be the best home team in football right now. If we're looking at it honestly, Tua's got his cornrows. He's locked in. I just think the Dolphins are going to put the beat down on the Raiders. Tyreek Hill always eats against the Raiders. He's done that his whole career. I just think the Dolphins are going to make a statement here. And, the narrative will switch on Monday morning. Here are the Dolphins beating up and bullying a bad team again. And, look, Antonio Pierce has done a good job filling in 2 games, but he hasn't faced a Miami Dolphins team with the talent that this Dolphins team has. And while the Jets have a great defense, they might have one of the most anemic offenses I've seen in my time of watching football. So, the Raiders are going to find out really, really quick. I actually think you put the record aside, I think the Raiders have one of the worst rosters in the entire league.
Yeah, they should be tanking from one of those quarterbacks. That's what they should be doing right now.
Right. I actually think the way they are playing right now, from a team building and future standpoint, they're going to end up with a pick probably like 12 or 13 overall. The blue chip players won't be there. They're going to have Josh Jacobs as a free agent. Are they going to try to tag him again? And I think
that McDaniels is gone now. They're going to sign him. I think Josh McDaniels, remember when Josh McDaniels got there, the word out was they were trying to trade Josh Jacobs before last season.
Right. Well, and I just think if you keep losing, Davante Adams is eventually want to get out. He wants to get to the Jets, because we said that a year ago, that as soon as the Aaron Rodgers thing, that the Jets, and we heard at the deadline they were sniffing. Yeah. They wanted Adam,
and they got told no.
I just think that it's coming eventually, that Max Crosby and Davante Adams won't be happy if the culture doesn't change. You could go smoke your cigars after you beat 2 teams that don't matter in the landscape of the NFL, but now you got to go travel on the road from the West Coast to the East Coast to play the best offense in football, and the Dolphins defensive unit, which is the biggest rising unit in football, in the heart of Miami. I mean, there's not an advantage the Dolphins don't have in this game.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I look at it right now. Now, you mentioned the Dolphins defense as being one of the biggest rising units in the NFL right now. We're coming off our bye. We're fresh. We're healthy. I got to ask this question right here. Let's start off with the topics here. Are the Miami Dolphins the NFL's most dangerous team coming off the bye right now? And I can use a couple of the things you even said there. That loss to the Chiefs, you don't think that's resonating with them and that's eating them alive, that they know, they beat themselves in that game, right? I mean, I've talked about it ad nauseum in the first half. The Cedric Wilson illegal motion that cost us 3 to 7 points because Waddle had a catch on that same play that got us down to the 26, which was nullified. Tyreek Hill drops a ball at the 30-yard line. Tyreek Hill fumbles a ball at the 31-yard line. I mean, right there, we're talking about 9 to 21 points offensively, and then if he doesn't fumble, 7 points that comes off the board for the Chiefs in the first half alone. I mean, and then you add in what we did in the third quarter. Man, this team should have put up 23 to 35 points and only allowed 14. I mean, they beat themselves. And it's funny to me because people always say, Neil, people complaining, cupcake schedule, they're beating all the bad teams. Well, Denver went on the road and beat KC. Denver went on the road and beat Buffalo. And we beat them by 50 plus in our own house. So, I mean, we took care of business in our house. These other good teams didn't take care of business in their own house. And then you look at this, and I know you said, even if we beat the Raiders, it'll go back to the narrative of, not being good teams. Well, listen, we don't just take care. That's why I'm not worried at all. Not only do we take care of the teams we're supposed to take care of, we take care of them in a decisive, orderly fashion. So, and while these other teams are struggling to even beat them, they're losing, let alone struggling to beat them by 2 or 3 points. It's you know what I mean? It shows, it goes back to why Stephen A. Smith was refusing to call us a pretender. You cannot call a team like this a pretender when they have this offense that can put up 35 on you in any given half like that. You blink and it's boom, it's up. The Ravens, I mean, we talk about the final 3 games of this season, right? The Cowboys, the Ravens, Bills. 2 of those 3 at home. The other one that's on the road, the Ravens. You think this core of players that were here last year, which is basically the whole team plus Jalen Ramsey, so that doesn't help the Ravens, they're going to walk into Baltimore thinking, this ain't a road game. We can do whatever we want in this stadium after what we did last year, so they're not worried about that. But the defense, Neal, me and Richmond and Ball Game, we had a finish line episode in the offseason. I said, does this defense potentially make them the NFL's most dangerous team heading into the season? When we got Fangio and we saw this defense coming together. Now we're at the midseason point. We're seeing the defense start to click. We've seen the potential of the offense. We've seen the level Tua is playing at. Brother, it's a question now. It's not just, now do you look at us as the most dangerous team coming out of the bye, kind of like how the Bengals were last year when they were 5-4 heading into the bye, and then they came out, won 7-0, had a no contest against the Bills and took it all the way to the AFC Championship. I view us as a team that can do that, Neal. That's why when people were panicking at 6-3, I said, bro, keep looking at what the Bengals did last year. We are a more explosive offense. And remember, what was so good about the Bengals last year, Neal? Their defense was so good last year. And this defense, Neal, it looks like it's about to click at the right time. Does that make us the most dangerous team in the NFL coming out of the bye?
Yeah, not only do I think we're the most dangerous team in the AFC coming out of the bye, I think we're the best team in the AFC, period, end of story. And, whether we're better than the Eagles or not, the only time we'll ever get to really try that out again is in the Super Bowl. So I'm not really worried about the NFC. But when you look at the landscape of the AFC, I think the Dolphins are the best team for 5 main reasons. First of all, their coaching staff. I think the coaching staff has done a great job in the first half of this year. 6-3, despite the amount of injuries that they've had with all the adversity they faced. And I think like Mike McDaniel and the offensive play calling is only going to get better. So coaching, the schedule, right? Everyone who wants to make light of the Dolphins beating teams or destroying teams that they should beat. Well, you know what? Beating bad teams is pretty good. More teams should try it because that's how you win. That's how you make the playoffs. You look at the landscape of the schedule over the next 5 weeks, the Dolphins are going 5-0. I truly, really think they are going 5-0. And if they handle their business and do that, they'll be favored by 5.5 or more points in every one of those games. If they handle their business, they have 11 wins and 11-3. And then everyone's acting like we go to Murderer's Row. We play Dallas at home. Sure, Dallas has got good weapons on both sides of the football, but honestly, we match up pretty damn good against them, especially with Trevon Diggs not playing. Baltimore, everyone's like, oh, they didn't have Roquan Smith when we played them last time. Well, we didn't have Bradley Chubb. We didn't have Jalen Ramsey, and we didn't have David Long Jr., who's playing at a Pro Bowl level for those who aren't paying attention, right? So we have the schedule in our favor. Health. The Dolphins are going to be the most healthy they've ever been. I don't think they'll get Robert Hunt back this week, but I think it's coming against the Jets. When they play the Jets on Black Friday, that's going to be the healthiest the Miami Dolphins have been all season, right? That's, barring some catastrophic injury. Offense. Sure, this offense hasn't done exactly what it's supposed to do on the road against the 2 best teams in football, right? But against every other team at home or away, the Dolphins offense has been the best in the NFL. Despite some speed bumps along the way, they're number 1 offense in the NFL. I expect that to continue. I expect them to get better. They're going to face some tough defenses. The Jets defense will be tough for this offense.
Yeah.
But, I think what we want to really focus on is the defense, because I think outside of the Dolphins' 70-20 win against Denver, which is the most impressive thing I think I've ever seen as a Dolphins fan on a Sunday, the second most impressive thing I've seen all year is what the Dolphins defense did to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the second half last week.
Shut him
like,
down.
I don't know if I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes that lost. And honestly, that gives me so much encouragement and hope for what we're going to see in the back half. So offense, defense, health, schedule, coaching, Those 5 ingredients is why I think that this team is not only the most dangerous, I just think they're the flat out best team in the AFC. Like I've heard people saying like, oh, well, the Chiefs are going to wrap up, and have the 1 seed and it's going to go through Arrowhead. We want to, at best get the number 2 seed. Not so fast. Like I think the Miami Dolphins, if they handle their business in the next 5 games and they win one of those last 3 games, in that Buffalo game, the Bills might be playing for nothing based off what they have coming up.
Yeah.
The Dolphins could easily get the 2 seed. They could fight for the 1 seed. Let's not forget that this Chiefs offense has looked horrible all season. Travis Kelce isn't getting behind defenses like he used to. And look, he's distracted, man. I don't care what anyone says. You're dating the biggest freaking music star in the world, and you're taking your bye week to go off and see her in Austria. Your priorities are elsewhere, right? Like, I'm just calling it like I see it. Like, they lost to the Denver Broncos. Who's to say that they don't lose a game to the Chargers or a game, they have the Eagles coming up on Monday night. I think the Eagles are going to beat them on Monday night. So, like, what I'm saying is I think the Dolphins are exactly where they need to be. And I think those who know football have this team on their radar as being the most dangerous team in the second half of this season.
Yeah. And just speaking of what you're saying, it was basically confirmed today. Liam Eichenberg was at right guard this week,
Right.
and Cotton's been at left guard. So he says he's more comfortable at right guard, but it looks like he's going to be at right guard, and Lester Cotton's going to be at left guard because both Hunt and Robert Jones are going to be out this weekend.
Yeah, and look, it's one more week we have to get through it. It's an inferior opponent. Like, I'm sure that is not obviously what you want, is to be on Lester Cotton and Liam Eichenberg, but this team's so good. They've overcome injuries all year long. That's what I hate, when people jump to these narratives without looking at the context.
Yeah, they make things. I had this conversation with someone yesterday. These people who push these narratives and agendas, they make everything so clear cut and black and white. They never add context to the situation. Like, I think one of the things that makes us so dangerous is we have just got a small sample size, but we have just got a taste of the Ramsey effect and how much he impacts his defense and how much he allows Fangio to do what he really wants to do in this defense. And Ramsey alone, man, I mean, this defense, Ramsey alone makes this arguably the most dangerous defense in the second. And the way our front is now going, I mean, you named David Long and Bradley Chubb and how we didn't have them last year, but the way that front 7 is now starting to click, especially off the edges with Phillips and Chubb. I mean, me and you both gave Chubb our defensive MVP for the first half of the season, and this after how much a large percentage of the fan base after the first couple weeks was, having a bit of buyer's remorse and saying maybe Roquan Smith was the move we should have made.
I injuries are a part of the game. Everyone says that all the time, but there's also an extent to when injuries are not a part of the game, right? Like, look what happened to the Jets. They lost their starting quarterback. Their season was over 4 snaps into the season. I don't care. You could have the best defense in the league. If you can't score points, you can't win, right? Then you look at the amount of people that the Dolphins had out. Not only the number of them, but the quality. When you're looking at Ramsey, Howard, Jalen Phillips missed a lot of games, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, Isaiah Wynn, Terron Armstead, Devon Achane. We are talking about a Pro Bowl roster full of players, elite of the elite. Like, I don't think it makes sense to people that don't want to pay attention, or unless you're really ingrained to being a Dolphins fan. But I would say we were losing 6, 7 of our top 12 players for a majority of this season. Like, you can't tell me that being 6-3 in the front of the division, knowing that, isn't good context to prove just how good this team is.
Yeah.
And like, that's where, man, and I'll be honest, I hate that the Dolphins are on Hard Knocks. I do, but damn, it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch in the second half of this season for sure.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't have HBO, but I got it. I picked it up.
I'm just gonna wait for it to go live and then just watch it online after. Do we have HBO? Do we have HBO up here? It's through like one of those. You gotta subscribe to one thing and then subscribe to I think up here it's a thing you gotta subscribe. It's like Netflix. It's called Crave. You gotta subscribe to Crave And then either that gives you access to HBO, or you got to go through add another $5 subscription to get HBO. Like that's what you got to do for like Stars. Have you heard of Stars? Obviously, you guys have it out there. Out here, you got to get like Crave, and then you got to pay again to get Stars.
Well, I hope the
Crave.
FBI is not listening, but I went to a guy's house a couple weeks ago that had one of those boxes, right? Like those old.
But don't tell me
boxes.
the boxes are back from when we were young in the 90s.
Dude,
remember I remember watching UFC when no one knew what the hell it was on the black box back in the day.
Oh man, when I was a young WWE
before
fan,
Dana.
I used to watch Channel 99 if my parents wouldn't let me get the pay-per-view, which was like the black and white fuzz and just listen to the audio.
Yeah. So would I, bro.
I had to do that back in the day. So, but no, but there's this little box, and like not only does it get all the like premium channels, all the games and everything, but you get all the pay-per-views too. Now I don't want to go to jail, so I'm not going to invest in that.
We'll talk about this backstage.
Yeah, like, but damn, I'll tell you what. If I know a friend locally that has it, I might be going over there. No, man. I as a Dolphins fan, for me, this is the most excited for a back half of Miami Dolphins football I've ever been in my life, ever.
Yeah.
Period. It's not. There was never a time, even in Dan Marino's peak, when I was this excited about a second half of the Miami Dolphins. So,
bro, it's because and I'm not saying people in the chat don't, because I know there's tons of people in the chat that do. It's because we're fans of different sports. So let's just use the Capitals and the Penguins as examples.
We're both playing great hockey all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, but we've also seen when they've made their runs in the playoff, what's it always been around, right? The playoffs start around April, and you start peaking in February, March. That's when you start peaking heading into the playoffs. You want to peak in February, March, so you can ride that into April, into the playoffs, and then run it through, May and June, right? And it's the same thing here, right? Like, it's less games, but you want to peak heading into that final quarter of the season. You don't want to peak at the mid-season. Yeah, you want to start peaking in December and ride that wave. And that's I think what has me and you so excited, is because we've seen the potential of the offense, but they haven't consistently put it together on the road yet against you wanted to hear a stat? I don't know if you've heard me spew this, but against 2022, 2023 playoff teams, we are 4-9. Okay, so take that 4-9, 2-8 on the road, 2-1 at home.
Right.
Again, we're a bad road team. That we're not a pretender. We're a bad road team. So
there's a lot of teams that are. There's a lot of teams that are.
Once this team starts putting it together, and they will. Listen, this team's going to be very dangerous, and it's all about every sport's about peaking at the right time. And we've seen what this defense is capable of. We've seen what this offense is capable of, but they haven't clicked on all cylinders and peaked together yet. And when they do, this team is going to be very, very scary and might be one of the best rosters the league's seen in at least the last decade.
Well, and there's more parity in the NFL than ever. Like, look at the Eagles. They're number one seed. The Washington Commanders have taken them to the wire twice, but then lost to just absolutely crap opponents. Like the Chiefs, they don't have a huge stranglehold on the AFC by any margins.
No.
There's a lot of parity in this league. Look what can potentially happen to a contender like the Cleveland Browns, who just lost their starting quarterback for the year. Like, they're not going anywhere with that rookie from UCLA, even though I like him a lot as a player. But like, the landscape of the NFL can change by one play, right? And you're getting your health and your injuries out of the way in the first half of the season and coming back supercharged in the second half. Because look, all those contenders in the AFC, the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey's hurt again, Ronnie Stanley's hurt again, right? You look at Cleveland, they lost their starting quarterback. The Bengals, they can't get T. Higgins on the football field. This guy comes back and he's hurt, and Trey Hendrickson's down now. The Bills lost Milano and Tre'Davious White.
Hendrickson's going to be a big loss for them, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you look at the landscape of the NFL, all these other teams, now the Chiefs have been relatively healthy outside of losing Nick Bolton, but they also, I mean,
that defense is disgusting in Kansas City right now.
Yeah,
Spagnuolo.
Oh, he's a great coach, but they have there's college rosters, like the Washington Huskies have a better receiving core than the Chiefs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you think
Ohio State,
Ohio State. So like, I just think that the Dolphins are the team getting healthy at the right time. And it's not like they've had an awful. They were 6-3, and they're in the 4th seed right now. Yeah. And I'd say that there's a strong chance they could run away with their division. Their division's going to be. I mean, the Bills are losing 5 more games, And the Jets, they'll be a tough out for teams, but I don't think they're winning more than 3 or 4 more games. So it's going to be, this is the Dolphins' year to put a stamp on it. But what I want to see, Reason, to be honest, in the back half is I want to see them do that. Put the stamp on early. With 3 games left, let the league know that you're not going in crawling at the end of the season, right? I've seen all the playoff percentages and odds. Let's make them hold true. Go take care of business. Don't lose to any inferior teams. And you could sum this up with 3 weeks left in the season, looking at 11-3 roster as being in the post-Marino era, no doubt about it, the best team that we've seen. And honestly, probably the best team that we've seen since 1973.
Kyle, I had a Patreon update a couple weeks ago. I think I put it over for channel members as well. I was told weeks ago that he's probably going to be done for the season. Maybe if we go deep in the playoffs, you might see him come back. But by then, they're going to have guys in positions rolling. Robert Jones will be back and healthy. I wouldn't expect him back this year.
I wouldn't count on it at all. And honestly, as much as we've criticized him on the show, Eichenberg's been playing better. He has been. Yeah. It's not like he's going to go out there.
Now they're moving him all around, left guard, right guard. Now we're moving him around again.
That's what scares me. That's what scares me, the musical chairs, because it's not like he was playing like he's Larry Allen from the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s, but he was being adequate. I don't know what you think, but I think the best offensive line that they can have with injuries from left to right is Armstead, Connor Williams, Eichenberg, Robert Hunt, and Austin Jackson. I think putting Connor Williams at left guard.
They're not going to. This is just a moot point. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, they won't do it, but I think that's their best combo right now. But I hope Robert Jones gets back because Robert Jones is a good football player.
So with another thing that I told y'all to expect on Patreon and on the YouTube, community tab for all you members weeks ago, I told you 2 things. I told you, one, after the Achane injury, I told all y'all the expectation was he would be back for the first game after the bye. And then I told all y'all expect Robbie Chosen to be the odd man out. And that is looking like what we're trending towards, as the Miami Dolphins have waived. And that's the key word, Robbie Chosen. They didn't release him. They waived him. So he has to clear waivers. So once he clears waivers, which I expect him to do, I think he's going to be moved back to the practice squad. Remember, key word was waived, not released. So Robbie Chosen has been waived. They haven't announced the Achane activation, but it's coming. What is his name? Jordan Schultz or whatever?
Yeah.
He's out here. Sources told Bleacher Report. Well, sources told Finside the NFL that like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So,
right.
This is not news. If you've been following this channel, you knew what was happening. But now we are seeing the paper trail leading up to it, Neil, with Robbie Chosen. And, I think they're going to stash him on the practice squad. And if someone gets hurt, that's the first guy they elevate. And it's something like, Anthony Schwartz. They can afford to stash them right now. And this team realizes they're going to lose bodies this offseason at that position. We don't know what Eric Zakama future is. We don't know what Claypool is going to do if he's going to leave. We don't know what Braxton's going to do, though.
Cedric Wilson's gone.
Cedric Wilson's gone. That's 4 receivers we've named right there. So, they're going to try. I think they're going to try and develop Anthony Schwartz off that speed. We got one of the best receivers coach, if not the best receiver coach in the NFL with Wes Welker.
Love him.
And I think they're going to develop Anthony Schwartz, see what he can do in next year in, training camp, et cetera, et cetera. And if he can make the roster, there you go. And Chosen's going to be another one. I think they're going to hope he can get through the practice squad, get him into next season, and he could be on the roster next year, even at the cheap. You know what I mean? I think this is the long-term goal because they got to supplement cheap options when they're potentially going to be losing like 4 guys.
Right. Yeah. And look, I think there's a really likelihood that they could get Braxton Berrios back on a cheap deal, to be honest, at the end of the season. And another guy that I think they might look to extend on a cheap deal, who's actually coming back from injury this week, is River Craycraft. And I don't want to underestimate
wide receiver 3.
I don't want to undersell his importance coming back. He's the best blocking receiver downfield. He's the most reliable on third down to move the chains. He brings a different skill set than anybody else brings on this team.
He has chemistry with Tua that Cedric was lacking on those throws that Cedric was miscommunicating with Tua, right? That's
I'm really like when I talk about the Dolphins getting healthy, There's guys like River Craycraft, there's guys like Durham Smythe and Alec Ingold. These guys are like the glue guys that help you win Super Bowls by doing their job. And River Craycraft, like, look, when we were in that comeback against Baltimore last year, it was River Craycraft catching that touchdown that got us jolted and got us, the energy flowing. And sure, it did help when Tyreek Hill burnt the Ravens secondary twice for those big bombs. But, I just think it's amazing to see this team get healthy. But I think you have a great point. Like, because look, Claypool's an unrestricted free agent. We restructured Cedric Wilson, so now he's an unrestricted free agent. Braxton Berrios is an unrestricted free agent. There's health concerns for Eric Uzakama. Like, as good as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are, I think it's paramount that the Dolphins have a number 3 receiver in this offense. And the Dolphins are one of those crazy teams that you get to the draft and it's the second round, and if there's the right player on the board, it wouldn't shock me if they took a receiver. Like, they just roll like that.
Yeah. Tech me out. What are your thoughts of cutting Ahmed and picking up Michael Carter's already been claimed by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep. I would, but yes, I would have done that. Yes.
Buddy, I would have cut Ahmed for a bag of Lay's chips at this point. What are we talking about right now?
Lay's are good chips. I'm in. I would do that too.
Before we get into something here that I want to touch on, because it's something I talked about yesterday and it was broached today with Fangio. Before we get into that, though, something that has come up in private conversations with me and to me, and you said to me that it's come up in private conversations you've had as well. The possibility of we're talking about the draft. The possibility of Terron Armstead potentially retiring at the end of the season due to injuries. Now I know the one thing I've said to people I've had this conversation with privately, I've said, but he's going to be leaving. Next year's the only year he has left where he's leaving real money on the table too, right? So I don't know if you would see it next year, but I could definitely think it becomes a possibility after next year. But private conversations I've had with multiple people in the know, and it's more theorizing and that kind of stuff. But with the injuries piling up, Neal, do you think it's a very realistic possibility that he at least considers or contemplates retirement? Like, I think money at the end of it might be the reason why you see him come back for at least one more year. But after that, all bets are off when you look at his contract. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is something that has been broached to me now. Like, the reason why I'm bringing it up on the show is because I've had like 3 or 4 different discussions about it privately now.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I tell you, we talked before we got on, and I've heard similar stuff. And I would say, as the Dolphins, I would love for Terron Armstead to play one more season here. And the reason I think it is because all of the 4 other starters on this offensive line are all unrestricted free agents as well. Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson, Isaiah Wynn. So, like, I think that leaves continuity on, the left tackle position. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of validity to Terron Armstead retiring. If you look at his career, he's a great football player, but just look at his 2 years in Miami. I mean, we knew he came with injury concerns, but he's even been more injured in Miami than he was in New Orleans. And that's
the body's breaking down. Neal, it's all lower body with a guy that size.
So
Brandon Albert. Remember Brandon Albert?
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's a realistic possibility. Now, if you want to find a silver lining in it, the silver lining is that if he retires, he has a $20.6 million cap hit, and only $5 of that million is guaranteed, which means the Dolphins, if he retired, would save $15.6 million against the cap. So, like, that is that enough money to bring back, Connor Williams, River Craycraft, and somebody else, right? Like, that's the way that I'm looking at it, because I make this very well known. When you look at the Dolphins free agents that they have to sign, like, the guys that I want to keep are Williams. I want to keep Hunt. I want to keep Deshaun Elliott, man. Deshaun Elliott has been awesome back there. Awesome. Like, I'll be honest, like, as a huge Miami Dolphins fan, I'm okay with Christian Wilkins walking because I just don't think the price tag is going to be digestible for both sides. And honestly, as much as I love Andrew Van Ginkel, look, he's a great, he's a great third wheel to the date. But Chubb and Phillips are just so damn good that paying $10 million for a guy like Van Ginkel. So, no, unfortunately, I think it's a real possibility on Armstead. I actually hope it doesn't, and that he if he can fight the rest of this season and be healthy, I think he'll come back. But unfortunately, here's the thing about the Dolphins. The biggest unknown, if you ask me what is one concern I have, my concern is that the reason that I would never play Kendall Lamb inside if we needed him to is he's so valuable as the swing tackle, right? Like,
Yeah.
because if Armstead goes down, Kendall Lamb played outrageously well as a left tackle this year. So I think, man, it's going to be hard to see. Now, here's I'll play devil's advocate. If this team goes to an AFC championship, right, and they lose to Kansas City Chiefs or something like that, man, I think the competitive nature of him will make him come back. You know what I mean? Like, I think he would have trouble walking away from this. But, man, I there's a lot of people on the Miami Dolphins I respect. And up at the top of that list is Terron Armstead because, man, it is so
Dude, when he
hard.
plays, he's a top 3 tackle in the game. When he's healthy.
And not only are the injuries he's coming back from, it's not like he's stubbing his toe. He's taking significant injuries.
Yeah. It's all lower body. Like I said, that when you're older and you're that big, like tall, not even width, tall, dude, have you seen Paul White's knees?
The Big Show?
Yeah.
No.
You haven't seen the memes of his knees? Did you see Kevin Nash's knees before the surgery?
I remember how bad his were. They were like dented.
I was like in, right? That's what Paul White's knees look like. That's what Terron Armstead is going to look like in the lower body because it's all lower body stuff, man.
Well, and look, he has passions outside of football. We know he likes his music, right? So there's other avenues for him to go explore. And look, the guy's got generational wealth already. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to keep tabs on. It's one of the things that I like. It's one of those things that the day after the NFL season, if it's announced that Terron Armstead is going, and look, hey, let's say that we all get to realize our dream and the Dolphins do win a Super Bowl this year, then I think the answer is definitely yes. Go out on top, right? So it'll be interesting to see, man. I think it's I know there's people that have like, I guess, like buyer's remorse to the fact that we signed Terron Armstead, but I say, look, that contract we signed him to is what we're getting, an elite player who misses a quarter of the season. Like if Terron Armstead didn't have injury concerns, he's $25 million a year player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's one of the top paid tackles in the NFL right now if he doesn't.
Right.
We talked a little bit about Christian Wilkins, the defense right now. I want to bring this up because I broached it yesterday when it came out that, Akiem Hicks hasn't decided whether he's coming back this year. And also, he said multiple teams have been interested and he had conversations. Well, Barry Jackson asked Fangio, a free agent defensive tackle Akiem Hicks' name has been broached in his talks with Grier McDaniel since several of you have asked Barry Jackson to do so. Fangio said a while ago it did, but it has never gotten any momentum. Hicks has said he talked to teams, but is undecided about playing this year. So Fangio's gone to bat for Akiem Hicks. Akiem Hicks hasn't decided whether he wants to play. I'm sure Grier and McDaniel are going to listen to him. I don't think it's a matter if they didn't listen to him and just say, oh, yeah, forget that. It's obviously coming down to whether Hicks wants to play or not. Listen, I think this is a player you can add here in the second half of the season. Neil, we discussed it where before we went live here, you can get him you can get him on the team. Get him listen, I would drop Deshaun Hand in a minute for him. Let's not even argue this because I don't even think we have someone as good as Jason Jenkins. And the reason why this means so much, Neil, check this one out. Vic Fangio did say today there's quote unquote a concern at times for the heavy workload that Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer log. But he said a lot of it's due to game flows. Wilkins and Sealer have played 77 and 76% of the defensive snaps. Even said, and I quote, usually most teams will rotate the D lineman a lot. We're low on D linemen, so we don't do it as much. And they cut Brandon Pilley because he continues to be stubborn with rookies, right? Akiem Hicks, I think this is going to be, with what Fangio's saying about how they're low and how even he doesn't he's he's not rotating because of how low they are. That screams that if Hicks decides to play, Neil, we might be first in line saying, come on home. And then that's a guy, man, you get him in here for week 12, week 13, you get him acclimated by week 15, week 16, and he's in the rotation for the last week of the season and heading into the playoffs. That's a good addition, potentially, and a quiet late addition that could be sneaky good.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, if he comes back, I do think the Dolphins are one of the front runners because of the relationship with Fangio. I want him to come back if he does soon, because I want him to get the rust, get in the field, get the NFL condition and stuff out of the way while we're on this, a weaker part of the schedule, and I want him to be there. But you add a guy like that, and it screams depth, right? Like, when we've seen Akiem Hicks at his highs, I mean, he's played and was every bit the player at his premier than Christian Wilkins has been. Like, what Akiem Hicks was in Chicago is what we've seen at a Christian Wilkins the last 2 seasons, right? So it would be, and I don't know if we get that same level of play, but it is a significant upgrade to Deshaun Hand. If we had to bring off Brandon Peely from the practice squad, like this is a huge signing. I will say, man, I am envious of that man because he gets to decide whether he wants to work or not. Like, wow, that's got to be a beautiful thing. Like, do I feel like making millions of dollars this year or not? Like that's a pretty cool thing. But no, I think Akiem Hicks would be a hell of a signing. And man, it would make me feel a lot better about this. Because I do think when you get to the playoffs, a part of you wants to make sure that you legitimately do have the best 53 you can. And I think Akiem Hicks, obviously makes this team better. So, because if Sealer or Wilkins do go down, it could be a significant dip to the defense against the run, especially.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I I think this could be one of those sneaky signings that, a quiet contributor potentially in a meaningful run, man. And it's a little addition to that. And again, it's, didn't have to spend an asset, didn't have to make a move at the trade deadline. And it's a position where I said that even at the deadline, interior linebacker, interior defensive line, and interior offensive line, we could use depth. And
right.
At least they're checking one of those boxes off. I still not a fan. I think the idea would be that if Baker or Long got hurt, I actually think they would call up AJ Johnson, and I think he'd get reps in that because he knows what Fangio wants from his linebacker. Like, if they were in a position, I don't know if Duke Riley would actually be the starter. You know what I mean? I think they'd bring up AJ Johnson for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they like some of the things Duke can do on the special teams and stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then he's like more the coverage guy, but I don't think he's a thumper. Now, I will say one of the things that I would be excited about, because I think it's good that we have David Long wrapped up again on this team for next year. And I think we all agree that this is Jerome Baker's swan song in Miami, right? Like, because of the cap ramifications, he's not going to be back. And what that makes me think is, man, they if they could go find a good young linebacker to pair with David Long, kind of like what we do see in Baltimore with Roquan and Patrick Queen, man, that could make this defense even take that next step. You know what I mean? I'm with you though. Linebacker. When you look at my ingredients, the things that we need to go grocery shopping for in the offseason, linebacker, defensive tackle, tight end, and offensive line are the they're the main things I think this team needs.
Yeah, I agree. I do. So, what are your thoughts heading into this Raiders game, man? What's your prediction? What are you feeling heading into this game?
I'll give you a quick score. I think 41-16. I think the offense is going to set the tone early, get the ball, score on their first possession. I think you're going to see big plays. One of the things I'm most excited for about this game is I think it's going to be the healthiest we've seen Jalen Waddle all season. I think Waddle's going to come back, and him and Hill, are going to be what we saw more of last year than what we saw in the first half of this year, meaning obviously Tyreek Hill's unbelievable and has unbelievable individual stats right now. But I think in terms of what we expect from Jalen Waddle, he's disappointed me a little bit. And I understand that helps.
We know it's because of the injuries.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle's a dog. He's one of my 3 favorite players in the world. I think he's the man. What he does on and off the field, I couldn't have more respect for him. I think the Dolphins defense is going to kick Aiden O'Connell's ass. I like this dude's going to get his and I don't know about the Raiders, but Colton Miller, their left tackle's been missing time. They have a trash offensive line, even if he's in it. Like, this could be I think I'm trying to be honest. Like, I'm predicted 41-16, and I'm trying to be a little bit conservative. Like, the Dolphins just might absolutely smash this team and embarrass them. I think it has that type of potential. This is a team that just does not match up well against the Miami Dolphins. Like, they don't. Like, our defensive line will eat against their offensive line. Our offensive line won't be challenged too much outside of Max Crosby by their defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, they got that kid Spillane at linebacker, but like, look, he was a role player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their
He's having a good
secondary.
season, though.
He is having a good season. What do they have? Marcus Peters, is that their best corner right now? Like, I mean, and he got hurt, I think, too. Like, honestly, I don't even know who's active for the Raiders because they're so bad that I don't pay attention to them. Like,
Yeah, I think we cook him.
Oh, and you know what I'm really excited for? A 40-yard, at least, Devon Achane touchdown run in this game. I think he's going to come right where he left off. Yeah, man. And you know what? I don't want to. This is a big win for the Dolphins when they get this, because to go to 7-3 after what just happened during your bye week, when you have the Chiefs playing the Eagles, we know the Ravens play the Bengals in a huge game tonight. Like, honestly, if the Ravens win this game tonight, the Bengals season's on life support. And if the Bengals win, the Ravens are that team again that's showing that in the fourth quarter, they have the ability to unwind and lose games they should win, right? Like, there's just a lot of big games. The Jets play the Bills. Like, whoever loses that game helps Miami. We know what the Bills' schedule looks like the rest of the way. We know what the Bengals' schedule looks like the rest of the way. We know what the Ravens' schedule looks like the rest of the way. I mean, man, like this season is lining up perfectly for Miami Dolphins fans and this team. And like, I just think getting every win you can. I don't care if they're the worst team in football or the best team in football. You're at the point of the season now where you just got to stack wins. Every week you win, you get closer to your goal. Those playoff percentage chances go up. The division goes up. Super Bowl chances go up. That's why you take care of business. That's why, when everyone's talking about the Dolphins losing those two games, and the Bills game is whatever to me, but the Eagles and Chiefs game, a lot of other teams are going to be doing the same exact thing in the second half of this season when the Dolphins are playing the Titans on Monday Night Football and beating them by 20 points, right? Or they're going to be playing, and I don't want to I think the Commanders might be a game that they'll put up a little bit of a fight for us. Sam Howell's he's a tough guy, he's not going to lay down against us, but man, like getting this win this week after the bye, coming out well conditioned, come out healthy. I mean, man, we're just starting the tip of this iceberg. What I've said for months, they've been playing closer to their floor. Here's where I think that big shift to them getting closer to their ceiling happens. The defense is ascending. The offense is going to regain their footing. They're healthy. They're motivated. They're at home. Man, the worst fan to be right now in football is a Las Vegas Raiders fan for this week.
All right, guys, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Make sure you tune in. We'll preview the Raiders and the Dolphins game. Over 400 of you in the room. Smash that like button on the way out. And as always, fins up. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a fantastic evening.